Hi beautiful people. I decided to take you on a walk with me. Halfway through my walk, I decided, let me do a video right here talking about insecurity and how to move through insecurity. The reason I'm making a video on how to move through insecurity is that I know if you're someone who carries a lot of insecurity, it can be such a big emotion. And the idea of moving through it and getting over it can feel so huge, it can feel so big, especially if it's something you've been carrying for so long, and depending on the weight of what it is that you're insecure about, and also especially what has led to that insecurity, it can all feel so ginormous and daunting. And so I want to talk to you about the things that the way I move through those things, and share that with you, because maybe my journey can empower you or inspire you to know that you can do really anything that you want, but especially move through levels of insecurity that have been all-consuming and have really had a hold on your life. Because what is the opposite of insecurity? It's to be confident, it's to feel secure, and that can feel so far away. And I've heard this saying, and I'm sure you probably have heard it too, is how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? You eat it bite by bite. So this is number one thing that I would want to mention to you on how to start dealing and moving through insecurity, is to deal with it bite by bite, or bit by bit. Bit by bit, because again, if you're dealing with some high levels of insecurity, that thing can feel very large, it can be very big. And if you're looking at the entire level of the circumstances around why you're insecure, the things you have to move through day to day today, the idea of actually getting through that can feel extremely big. I'm also walking my dog, so we're gonna see how this goes. It can seem extremely big, and when you think about an elephant, if you were to look at it and have to decide how you were gonna eat it, it may keep you frozen. Many people who deal with a lot of trauma and pain, or dynamics that have caused you to be insecure, when you look at the idea of addressing it, you can't actually freeze because it can be so big, just like that elephant. But the first step and the first suggestion that I would offer is to look at what's right in front of you. You're dealing with the matter bite by bite, bit by bit. And what will happen is, as you address things in this way, when you look back, you look at how much of the pain you've actually digested and eaten and moved through, and then also eliminated from your system because you have moved through it. And it is a process. So this can sound like a long level of enduring or dealing that you have to do to get to a place of being insecure, to a place of security, but it does really take recognizing that it's bit by bit, so that you know to be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and give yourself credit for the small movements that you're making initially, because all of that is going to build up to the larger goal. So that's first tip. The second tip is to really think about the source of where these things come from. I know when I dealt with a lot of insecurity and I didn't have an awareness of why, not a real solid awareness, like really thinking about where that started for me, it was just like I was going through my life putting out fires. Everywhere I went, I would have experiences with people that just really re-triggered all of my insecurities, and so the nature of how I would deal with things at that time was to try to go and put out the fires in those places, deal with the situations there. But because I never really dealt with the source, the situations kept popping up over and over again. And so it wasn't until I had certain circumstances happen where I had really moved through a lot of things in life. I had progressed in a lot of ways. And then I had a situation happened that really was triggering. It really did bring up some really heavy emotions. And I almost felt like it really set me back quite a bit, or for several days. And I think that's what happens sometimes when people are really triggered from painful experiences of the past. It can make you feel like it knocks you back. It's just some of those old emotions or old patterns. And but what was so good about this situation, though, is that it caused me to really dig a little deeper and understand where these things were coming from. And at that time, I was seeing a therapist, and this therapist actually helps me recognize the origin of why I have responded to the particular situation in such a way. Why I have responded to the situation in such a way. And it really took me to understand from that experience that this is where this is coming from. And so while it hurt in the moment, it was heavy, it started the process of me going back to recognize these emotions that I'm feeling really come from this very particular source, very specific source that I had never dealt with or processed. And so there is an important element of moving through past situations, oftentimes that are the source of your low self-esteem or your insecurity. To be able to go back enough to look at that, address that, really ask a lot of questions around that, really redefine the situation for yourself. If someone, made you feel such a way, you can go back, and if someone made you feel such a way, it is possible in those situations that you took on a belief based off of that person, those people, the situation. But now when you're going back to reflect, you can reflect now with a larger insight than that younger version of you who wasn't, didn't have the insight to be able to do that necessarily. So it allows you to be able to now go back to the situation as an adult, as an older person, as someone who has some more wisdom, to be able to, re-look at the situation and define it differently for yourself, define who you are. Also look at the key players in the situation. More than likely, the people who really imposed some negative emotions on you, there's a good chance that they were going through their own things, and their very own thing could have been their own insecurity, or their own pain. And sometimes this doesn't make the situation right, but it does help take the weight off of you that this person and what they said and what you came to believe that they were correct in their analysis of things. So it can allow you to go and redefine things for yourself at that point. And let's see. And then so the next thing is, the thing that is inevitable. Well, before we get to the inevitable, let's talk about what you do once you've had this awareness. We talked about redefining it, so I would speak a little bit more specifically to that. Is now it is time for you to come and give yourself new definition for yourself. Even if it's something that you don't completely believe, it can be redefining yourself for what it is you desire for yourself. Who do you want to see yourself as? And also, who did you see yourself as before pain came and defined you in this way that made you feel less about yourself? What was that younger version of you that you don't remember, that got lost in the chaos that you experienced? And also, who is it that you desire to see yourself as? Because who you desire to see yourself as is, there's a version of you like that. So now it's just putting your focus on that version of you so that you can give energy to developing that part of you. Because often when we're dealing in insecurity, we have our focus on a lower sense of self. We have our focus on a lower nature of how we see ourselves. And when we do that, we're actually giving energy to that. We're helping to develop that version of us more. But when you decide who it is you really desire to be, that means that person is there, but you need to put your energy into that version of you so that they can develop and grow. Take the energy off of this lower nature. And I'm not saying that is going to happen at the snap of a finger, but I am saying that with practice, comes habits that can be more second nature to you. So it does take practice initially. And now what is the inevitable is to move through things like the confident version of yourself that you imagine. And this can feel so scary because it really defies the reason, it really speaks to the reason why you haven't done those things in the first place, because you didn't feel capable, you didn't feel confident, you didn't feel good enough. So you haven't done it, you've shied away from it, you've watched other people do it, and you've just sat and sulked a little bit about your life. But now is the opportunity to be able to have situations that you move through from the version of you that is what you desire. And initially, you might do it trembling, you might fumble, you might be a bit clumsy with it initially, like I am right now, fumbling with this phone and my dog. It may be all those things initially, but what I would want you to really focus on is when you do these things, how do you feel after you've done it? Because more than likely, we catastrophize situations before we've done it. It's so huge. And often when we've done it, we've moved through something and done something that was challenging or didn't feel natural or it was scary, after we do it, we feel good about it in some way. And so that is what I would encourage you to do is, after you've done the thing that was so daunting, sit back and reflect. How do you feel once you've gone through it? I remember when I was in nursing school, I had so many challenges or obstacles that people could say would be a reason that I would not have been able to finish. There were so many obstacles, seemingly obstacles, that I had in my way upon going to college and wanting to go to college and become a nurse at that time. One of them was that I wasn't a strong student in high school and grammar school. I kind of did the bare minimum to get through, so I didn't feel I was necessarily prepared. I hadn't seen it done, around me often, a lot. So, I had to make this vision for myself. I didn't know what it would quite look like. And also, I had gotten pregnant in college. And so many people have mentioned that, you need to stop. And I think people would say you would have a setback, which is a word I'd never heard. But I guess it meant that if I continued to go to college right after I had my baby, that I would like, I don't know, have some kind of physical setback, But I remember, as afraid of it as I was, there was something in me that knew this was necessary for me, first of all, to take care of my daughter. And so what I had to do in the midst of the obstacles was really, as much as you hear it, was understand your why. And at that time, my why was that I had a child that was coming into the world, who had just come into the world, and I needed to support my child. I needed to be able to do this, and so that was my reason why. And not only should something be your reason why, having a reason why, it needs to be something that really sits close to you. And my daughter, my gosh, she meant everything. She was everything, So it was not just the why, it was the passion behind the why as well. Because you could attach to somebody else's why, and it's not your why, So when you think about moving through insecurity, what is it that you feel you would accomplish if you weren't dealing with the insecurity? What is it that you feel that you would be doing differently if there was no insecurity? And I guarantee you, there is your why behind there, and there's more than likely passion behind it too. And so I'm leaving that with you today. Let me know in the comments that you've heard this message by putting a red heart and commenting on anything here that has stood out to you. Also, please like and subscribe to this channel, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.